Hello, it's Serena Myers. It's Serena Myers Marketing. I'm just going to kind of give a second here and let people hop on to today's call. Now, the thing that's funny is that I am the worst about actually planning out my Facebook Lives. I always do them really spontaneously. I never give anyone a heads up. And even today, it's the first time I've actually given a heads up. And I did it with like 7 minutes to spare. So it's very possible that most of you will be joining me on the replay. So hello. And yeah, so let's get started. Okay, branding. And I'll talk a little bit after about like colors and fonts and blah, 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 and customer experience and all of that kind of design-based stuff. But I want to start off about the kind of core value of branding, and that is setting an expectation for your client. Now, if you think about really, really big chains, one of the reasons that they're so successful is that their processes and their preparation and everything is repeatable and scalable. So when I moved to the UK and I went to the train station, I could order a Starbucks and it was the exact same thing as the Starbucks I was able to order back home. And, you know, especially when you're in a new place, that kind of familiarity, that predictability, that's very, very reliable. It's comforting. It's a nice way to sort of feel like you've got a little bit of home with you. Now, the pastries and some of those types of things, there were some subtle differences, but there were a few like tried and true core offerings that were the same across the board. And the same thing if I go to the States, they'll be the same as well. Now, sort of a little anecdote. My husband and I went for lunch today and we had sushi, and I ordered a bento box and I was picking away at my food and I got all the way to the end, and then there was what I thought was the wedge of orange that's in the corner. And I know for the most part they just use this as garnish. However, sometimes it's nice to have sort of like that little sweet treat at the end of your meal. And so I looked at it and it was a bit of a different color and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if this is a blood orange. And I bit into it and it was a grapefruit. Talk about like a jarring experience, expecting something really succulent and juicy and sweet like an orange and getting a sour squash of grapefruit in your mouth. I was very put off. And I was just thinking like, it's not that oranges are part of, you know, this sushi place's brand. They're not like the orange sushi restaurant on the corner or whatever. But there is something about having a predictable offering and about having something that is expected. And like an orange garnish in a bento box is a pretty common thing. I've been to this particular location a gajillion times. It's across the street from my house. And yeah, it's always orange. So when you have something that's a little bit unexpected, a little bit unsurprised, and it goes against what the experience you're used to having or that you're expecting to have with a company, it can be very jarring, and it can actually dilute the experience. Because right now, here I am still complaining. It's probably like half an hour later and I'm like, oh, grapefruit, because I can still feel it in my mouth. And I'm forgetting about how luscious the rest of the lunch was, how great the ambience was, how nice of a time I had with my husband, and these kinds of things. And those same principles apply to branding. So your brand, and again, I know a lot of people look at it just as like colors and fonts. That is part of it, and you need to have those things be consistent. However, your brand is the expectation that you are setting, and if it's someone that you've done ongoing business with, it's the expectation that you're setting to move forward. So it's almost like this unspoken agreement between you and your customer. And you know, you're going to express it with things like colors and fonts and whatever, but ultimately, what you're doing is telling them about the relationship they're about to have or will continue to have working with you. And this is the kind of thing that's really important. And the reason I kind of get a bit on my high horse about this is not just because I'm a super brand nerd, which I am, and especially when it comes to like creating palettes and creating like the visual expression of a brand. So like looking at all the different facets that make up a brand and what the experience is going to be like, and then finding ways to express that visually. Like I love that stuff. I'm a super nerd. But the thing for me is that your brand is your ability to compete, especially when you're a small business. Now, about a year, oh gosh, I think I almost started it, this summer will be 2 years ago, I started, oh, hello, whoever is here, can you send me a message in the notes, and thank you for that heart. I didn't even know you could send hearts on here. Yeah, I'm just wondering who's joining me. Anyhow, about 2 summers ago, I started a self-employment program. Oh, it's Michelle, hello. I started a self-employment program at one of our local colleges, and unfortunately, I was the business coach that I was assigned, she went on mat leave, and I got passed around a little bit, and I ended up with this coach who's very, 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 very different from me. And we were, at the time, it was when I was doing just my aromatherapy business. I had a product line, full of products, a product line full of products, go figure. I had a line of products. And he was talking to me about changing my product packaging for one of my products to make it cheaper and to make it lighter for shipping, because cost and weight were two of the main issues that I had. And I sat down with him, and I came from a branding background first. Before I moved into product, this is what I did for a living. I did it for big companies. So yeah, anyhow, I explained to him that to do that, and he was a business owner before he was an educator. He still was a business owner at this time. And I said, for me to switch from jars, like beautiful, beautiful jars, to bags, like Ziploc bags, would be a complete dilution of my brand. And I'm creating an upscale experience, and you can't do that with a plastic bag and a Ziploc. And I will never forget these words. He said, Serena, you are too small for a brand. And that was around the point where I completely shut down in that meeting. He didn't quite get the FU that I was thinking in my head, but I completely shut down. And for the fact that this is an educator for small business. Yes, Michelle, what? Exactly. This is an educator for small businesses. Now, if you can imagine, for me, I came into it with the experience about branding, and I know my shit. Let's just say it like it is. But for someone who was like, let's say they were a landscaper, or they were, I don't know, a jewelry maker or something. Hi, Christine. If somebody came in and they had like their very specific skills, and they didn't have a marketing or a design or a branding background like I did, which I realized that it was a luxury, and they were just taking this as gospel, he would say to them something along the lines of, so-and-so, you are too small to have a brand. And they would believe that to be true. And that's bullshit. And it makes me so mad, because if you factor in the small businesses that do really well, the reason they're able to do well is because they have presence. They have a brand. They have strict guidelines that they follow. Their packaging is very professional, and their packaging looks like, has similar kind of elements that string together as their website, as their social media. They're using professional photos. They're creating all these things. And like I was saying at the start of this broadcast, they're creating an experience for the customer, something that says, this is what you can expect when we're going to work together. This is what you can expect once we continue to work together. You're setting the rules of the engagement. And that's what a brand is. So to be telling people that they are too small to do that, first of all, in my case, was like a complete slap in the face of my own experience. But second of all, it's encouraging them to always have to play small. Now, I'm not saying that you should go and invest $1 gajillion in, let's say, packaging, importing units from China, because I looked at it. I looked at how much it would cost, and I mean, the minimum amounts were around 5,000 pieces. Well, I didn't have the space in my house to host 5,000 pieces of jars or of any one package. I had 36 products, so you can imagine I would have had 5 times 36. There would have been thousands and thousands of items that I didn't have a warehouse. So I'm not saying you have to go balls out and spend $1 million and create this really, really expensive experience. There's different ways that you can do that on a smaller scale and still look professional, look put together, and that allows you to show up and be taken seriously. Because that's what those big brands with the big budgets and everything, the reason they're able to do that is because they have the money to throw at those things. They have the ability to hire agencies to craft beautiful words for them and whatever. And there's things that you can do by yourself. I'm not saying, oh yeah, you have to hire me. I'll help you. I will help you. That is something I do. But you can do things like choosing your color palettes. And I'm not saying, in fact, I would discourage you from doing something like buying a palette from Etsy or from anywhere else. I'm saying literally you can use kind of inspiration as your starting point. Pinterest is a great place to kind of dump information, and you'll start to see common themes of things. If you have a Pinterest board that you're putting a whole bunch of images and colors and swatches and things that sort of express the brand that you want to articulate for your people, you'll be able to look at the common threads and say, okay, well, in my case, I'm really drawn to this particular shade of pink, or maybe, you know what, I really like that sort of earth tone. I'm drawn towards wood and leaves and branches, and you know what I mean? You'll be able to see what it is that really drives you. So if you're not really sure, you can just use Pinterest as a place to kind of dump stuff and refer back to it after. But once you choose your palettes and once you choose your fonts, you got to stick to them. Yes, exactly. Michelle, you and I always talk about what lights you up. And so, Michelle says, go with the things that attract you. And that's exactly it. So it's not just that it'll attract you, but will also speak to your customer, right? So it's finding that common ground so that you can still be authentically yourself. But that you will be able to express it in a way that resonates with your peeps. And you can use that through color. You can use that through pictures. You can use that through font styles. But it's also in the language you use and in your copywriting and how you express yourself in that way. If you're promoting an event, let's say a Facebook event, it's a perfect example. And you set up your event on your pro page, everything is great. And then you go into a group and you just post it. You don't describe what it is. What you're relying on is that they're going to then take the initiative to click it and to read the description and to be really compelled. But that's expecting a lot. You need to either have a lot of clout and a lot of engagement for someone to say, oh, so-and-so posted that, I'm going to go and click there. Or you need to give them something, I don't want to say clickbait because I feel like that's got kind of a bad rap, but you need to entice them. You need to sweeten the deal a little bit. So you would put it out and say, hey, I'm hosting this event, and these are the kind of great things you're going to get out of it, and blah, 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 whatever. Give it a description, and then link to your event. So it's, it's having that relationship and whatever, but that's copywriting. It's a whole other deal, and we're not talking about that today. We're sticking to just kind of brand. So once you have your pictures, and you can say, okay, I'm looking at these kind of green tones, and I want some woody elements and some leaves and whatever. Then you can say, okay, from there, you actually will break down. You can use something like Photoshop. Hi, Tony. You can use something like Photoshop, but if you don't have that, you can actually download a free eyedropper tool, which you just Google free eyedropper tool. There's also a plugin you can get for Google Chrome. And you can literally take your mouse and click in pictures, and it will provide you the color values of those shades that you're stealing off of your Pinterest board. And you say, okay, so my kind of guidelines, you want at most 3 primary colors, at most 2 accent colors. These are ones you're going to use a little bit more sparingly. And then you'll have 1 neutral. For me, a neutral is usually a darker shade in a black charcoal sort of gray kind of spectrum. And that'll be what you use for your body text and that kind of thing. Your 3 primary colors, your main brand colors, those are going to be the things that are, sure, on your website it'll be your titles and your boxes and things like that and different ways of highlighting. However, it'll also be in the stock photos that you're looking for. You're going to be looking to be able to bring in as much as these kinds of shades as possible. So there are lots of things that you can do without a big budget, that you can do by yourself, that you can do for free or for just a little tiny investment. It'll take you a little bit more time, but sometimes when you're getting started, you've got more time than money. So use that. Invest that. Think about the personality you want to use and make Pinterest your friend. Really, just spend time, dump a whole bunch of stuff there. I used to do it before Pinterest. I used to just have a folder on my desktop that was called inspiration, and I would shove stuff in there. But now you've got the ability to place it all out on a screen and compare them side by side. So, it's free. Why don't you use it? So if you have any questions, this video is going to be saved on my biz page. You can always put things in the comments. I will take a peek back at it later. But just know that branding is your ability to compete. It's your ability to form a relationship with your client before you've even really gotten out the door. And it's your way of showing that you take yourself seriously and that you're professional. So if you ever find someone like I did who says you're too small for a brand, well, you can just send them to this video. They'll get to hear my opinion of what that's all about. But you are not too small for a brand. In fact, if anything, I would say it's more important to be doing earlier on in the game. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for popping in. Thank you for whoever's watching on the replay. And yes, I will keep an eye on the comments. If you do have any questions, you can always send them there. And if you'd like to book a compatibility call on my website, you can do so at serena.ca. All right, have a great day.